down.
And this is a matchup here where I would say that Job is paying a tax for his mana. Hydroid Crisis is good once you get to that stage of the game, but the mono blue deck's trying to prevent you from getting to that stage of the game. And as you see, Job already leading off with an untapped Breeding Pool. How much does his mana base come back to haunt him against a deck that's trying to shorten the length of the game?
Now, John Job here, shocking for that opting to cast a Lava Coil on 2 to kill Miscloaked Herald to make sure that Curious Obsession doesn't run away with the game. Wagner actually missing his second land drop, but has a follow-up creature in the form of a second Miscloaked Herald. See if he has a land to play. Doesn't, but has a Curious Obsession when John Job tapped out. Misses his land drop off the draw. Does Job have the answer?
Yeah, big test right here. Now, Crackling Drake's still plenty good for Job, but Wagner-Krankel's perspective, that might be better than a Lava Coil or a Shock.
Yeah, but all this extra cards from the Curious Obsession don't matter if Wagner is unable to find a land. He is flooded right now with spells and doesn't have enough mana to deploy them, so this Crackling Drake could just eat him alive.
You know, already up to 3 power by my count.
Yeah, with that Discovery as well as the Lava Coil and the Opt, this Drake is a 3/4 attacker. Let's see if Job can put any more instant sorcerers into the graveyard to leverage this large body.
Removal spells here for Job would be really good. Any follow-up play, reactive or proactive. But you don't want to be kind of spinning your tires here and give Robert the opportunity to draw out.
Yeah, Job actually putting a huge emphasis on his own life total, holding back that Crackling Drake so that the Siren Storm Tamer can't attack. Job just has a lot of reactive cards in his hand, things that probably protect the Crackling Drake as well as a couple of lands, and not a whole lot else to do with it. But here is the big follow-up, Niv Mizzet Peyrune, and this is why he's playing this longer style deck.
Yeah, and you know, I thought that no attacks from Job last turn was incredibly conservative.
Same.
But if you have Niv Mizzet lined up, then that's fine. Just protect your life total. Mono Blue is not going to be able to manage this card. Should be a runaway from here.
Yeah, I mean, the main deck has no real way to get it off the table, and since it's uncounterable, there was no way for him to actually deal with it. Now every card the Jonathan Job draws is going to shoot something for 1, and with creatures with such low toughness, there's a good chance that it just dominates the game here. All right, on upkeep, Wagner going to go for a Merfolk Trickster, but John Job with the dive down. That's going to protect it from the ability as well as draw him a card and kill that Siren Storm Tamer.
Yeah, Robert there, that's a good setup. I mean, that's the shot you have to maybe take a turn off of the havoc that Niv Mizzet is about to create. But Job with the dive down, and now
boy, this is going to hurt.
The world is Job's oyster.
And I believe he has a Chart of Course, which functionally acts as 3 points of damage here. He might actually just be able to kill him this turn with enough instant sorceries that say draw a card, along with everyone drawing an extra thanks to Niv. Lava Coil here on that Trickster, and pumping the Crackling Drake along the way. That's it. That's the game 1 for John Job. Now, how do you transition? If you're the mono blue deck, do you stay the course and hope you draw lands? With the sideboard here, we're going to go over in a second, we're going to see if Robert Wagner has any good ways to interact with his Temur Drake's deck and those powerful Niv Mizzets. 2 copies of Deep Freeze, 2 Entrancing Melody, 2 Exclusion Mage, which could potentially be a nice answer, 3 Surge Mare, and 2 Fairy Duelist, 3 Negate, and 1 copy of Search for Escanta.
So the Deep Freezes can do a little bit of management of Niv Mizzet. It's still an effective blocker against some of the threats, but it is something. And I don't mind the Exclusion Mage either. You know, Job there was, you know, often with Niv Mizzet, unless the game goes on for a really long time, you kind of have to play it, take a deep breath, and then get to the next turn. And Exclusion Mage can be effective there in giving yourself a little bit more time.
Yeah, obviously Niv Mizzet really putting on a show there. And the mono blue deck having no true removal spells that can handle it, especially in the main deck. We just saw Niv Mizzet completely take over that game. From John Job's side, his sideboard offers up 2 Crushing Canopy, which may be good at dealing with those flyers, 3 copies of Fiery Cannonade, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Rallies of Viceroy, a Sailor of Means, a Star of Extinction, 2 Banefire, and 2 Entrancing Melody. What do you like? Well,
the Cannonades are a star here. You could justify bringing an Entrancing Melody, although I think it's not as high impact as the Cannonade, and where Mono Blue gets his strength is fighting against expensive spells.
Yep.
So it makes me a little nervous to go to that, but you know, certainly the upside on that card is very high.
Yeah, I mean, there's the old adage that I guess it's not that old because Mono Blue hasn't been around that long, but for me, against Mono Blue, Any interaction is good interaction, even if it gets hit, it's getting hit by Spell Pierce, etc. I want to be as proactive with my interaction with them as possible, so I don't really want to sit on dive downs and Spell Pierces and things like that. I want to make sure that everything in my hand and my deck is either a threat that's putting pressure on them or some way that's forcing them to have the answer.
Yeah, I think a reasonable recipe against mono blue aggro, regardless of what your strategy is just spend all of your mana every turn.
Yep.
Try to keep up in terms of mana, and then play a card that's more powerful than anything in their deck.
Yeah, and their creatures don't size very well, right? They're flush with 1 mana 1/1s and 2 mana 2/2s with flash. Like, the only creature in their deck that's a real threat by itself is a Tempest Djinn. So if you're able to break up the Curious Obsession monotony and get to the next level after that without too much damage done, your creatures are just going to be naturally bigger than theirs.
Yeah, those are the two ways that mono blue goes out about winning. One is Tempest Djinn's extremely powerful, and you can win games with that card. And the other is they just get out in front of you with cheap cards, and then they trade off their mana more favorably than you can.
Yeah. Starting the game off here, John Job took a mulligan to 6. Wagner here leads with Terramander, met by a shock, following up with a Siren Stormtamer on turn 2. See if Job can come up with an answer here for this, or if Wagner has a way to punish him and has a Curious Obsession plus protection on the following turn. John Job shocks to 16, plays a Terramander of his own. Curious Obsession here. John Job's not going to be able to block effectively. Let's see if he has a shock. I don't think he does. Decides to chump block to keep mono blue off that card economy.
Interesting.
It's a card for a card, and if John Job is flush with spells and needs lands, there's a chance that trading that Terramander for a free card on the other side is worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, Job's so far away, especially missing land drops here for the Terramander to do anything that, yeah, why not? It's not trading with anything else. Yeah,
I mean, like you said, it's just so far away. And here, the mono blue deck, this is the dream draw, the Curious Obsession with protection. And he still has 4 cards in hand, with John Job missing land drop after land drop. Tempest Djinn, the follow-up here for Rob, alongside that Curious Obsession Siren Stormtamer. See where Job goes from here. It looks like he has access to a Crushing Canopy. See if this works.
All right, well, you know, the worst is over. Well, second worst is over, I guess. This is still pretty bad.
Yeah, this is not great. Chart, of course, here really showing off why it's in the deck. You get your creature with the Curious Obsession on it killed, and you follow that up with a big attack with a Tempest Djinn and a draw, too. Terramander here, also with a pretty stocked graveyard, is relatively threatening.
Yeah. Well, Chart, of course, also the floor is so high. I mean, draw 2, discard 1 for 2 mana is already on the verge of constructed playable.
Yeah, and John Job here goes for the Desperation Fiery Cannonade. Robert Wagner realizes he could just pump the Terramander, and that's lethal.
I did not like that play from Job. I would not want to reveal that card is in my sideboard for no value. I mean, you're just dead on board.
Yep, that's fair. But
unless you're signing them out, unless you're doing the rope-a-dope. But I suspect that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, Fiery Cannonade is a good way to clean up a lot of those 1/1s. You know, it's a lot like playing against Bogles in Modern, right? Like the first Bogle is usually the one that gets suited up with all the stuff. But if you're somehow able to deal with it, sometimes as a control deck, you still have to deal with like a bevy of 1/1 creatures. So having something like Fiery Cannonade is a good way to clean those up.
And often where Mono Blue tries to go is I've got one threat that I'm protecting, and I'm going to make my opponent go through a bunch of hurdles to answer that one threat. And then I'm going to deploy a second wave of things once they've tapped out. And Cannonade can play very well in that second stage. If you can fight over the first Tempest Djinn or the creature with Curious Obsession on it, often they're kind of sitting there on their mana, not really developing their board. And then the Knuckleheads come out in wave 2, and you clean it all up.
Yeah, we actually saw exactly that happen earlier. Ten and Grace, I believe. I believe it was Ross Merrim earlier in the weekend was on camera, and his opponent was able to deal with his first threat, so his second wave was just 3 1-mana creatures, and that was met by a Fiery Cannonade. Both players here with a turn 1 play. John Job goes for Opt on Wagner's Instep. Miscloaked Herald from Wagner as a good opening threat. Let's see if John Job can find the answers.
Really thinking about this Opt here?
Yeah, I mean, it's important. You know, it could change the entire texture of the game. If it's a land and he's like a little flooded but has an expensive spell, is it worth keeping? Curious Obsession here from Robert Wagner. That's going to change the pacing of this game, and finds a Spell Pierce off the top. No red mana for Jonathan Job. He had a Lava Coil in hand to go for it. Doesn't have the red mana.
I don't know if he has any mana at all.
This is a heartbreaker for Jonathan Job. So close to these elimination rounds. No red mana still, even after that Charted Course. And Terramander can't block. This is bad news, baby.
Can't even chump like last time.
Yeah, Mistcloak Herald, unblockable. That's what it adds to the deck. And
now the shields are up. And I'm sure Robert is ready for a battle, even if Joe finds red mana to interact.
Yeah, and this is the thing I write about a lot, is forcing your opponent to start the action. No matter what the matchup is, if you're in the aggressive slanted position, your opponent will always have to act first. And in this scenario, Jonathan Job is going to have to act first. And even though he has one more mana in play than Robert, he's probably going to lose the battle to Spell Pierce plus something else. Fiery Cannonade tilted to the top of Job's hand. That does play around dive, or no, it doesn't play around dive down because it gets plus toughness. Never mind. Attack with Terramander. Let's see what the follow-up is. Job decides to pass. Robert just plays a land, going to go for an attack. Job goes for a shock.
Yeah, try to do it through the course of 2 turns to make Robert use his mana inefficiently.
Yeah, and that's really smart. With instant speed spells like that, it's always important to make sure that your timing is correct.
And, you know, from Robert's perspective here, this is obviously going really well, but it can be really tempting to get into the spot where you're just sort of bobbing and weaving and hitting for a little bit and drawing some cards. There is some burden on you to get the game over with because Niv Mizzet can totally invalidate all the little bits of card advantage you've received to that point in the game. Probably not that threatening from Robert's perspective right now because Job is just so far away from triple red and 6 mana. But, you do want to play a little bit faster.
Wow, this is a bold Spell Pierce from Robert. Jonathan Job going to pay, and that Spell Pierce effectively had no real effect on the game.
Yeah, it's Spell Pierce. Seems like your Spell Pierce is more valuable, unless I guess maybe it's for Terramander considerations. Just get a spell in the graveyard.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility, and also Terramander considerations from the other side. That is John Job's 5th instant. I mean, he could have played a Shockland untapped, turned that Terramander into a 5/5, and started swinging in large chunks. And Robert had to get another instant to his graveyard and draw the land, able to be able to do it himself. Attacks for 1, plays a Tempest Gen, says go. Job gets to untap here with his Terramander, but he's facing off against a Tempest Gen. Let's see what he has to play.
And, for all the coolness that is going on in Job's deck, and I like the innovation, it's looking like this game for the top 8 might come down to his mana being stretched just a little too thin.
Yeah, he still needs 2 more red sources and able to cast a Niv Mizzet. Still needs 1 more red source to be able to cast a Crackling Drake. And he has 5 lands on the battlefield. And you have to imagine that if he was just an Izzet deck, just 2 color, blue and red, he would have had that second red source by now. They don't play that many islands. They only play like 6. And he already has 4 technical islands in play. Curious Obsession here. Second Curious Obsession here on the Tempest Gen. That's going to make it quite large. 6 toughness. 6 toughness, 7 power, rumbling through.
And the 6 point of toughness there, critical to be able to play over the top of a Terramander being activated into a 5/5.
Right, and looks like Jonathan Job is going to chump block here to save that 7-point swing as well as the 2 cards. Robert going to follow it up with a Charted Course for 2 free cards.
And found a dive down for his trouble 2.
All right, looks like we got a couple of updates on the back tables. John Johnson wins his match to lock up his spot, and then Jonathan Hobbs as well. So those players looking to make the elimination rounds, and they're dangerously close, but we're going to have to see how those tiebreakers shake out. Jonathan Job here. Terramander is a 5/5. Needs something else, though. Not quite there.
That's the 2nd red mana. So Job, in theory, just a single red mana away from Niv Mizzet.
Crackling Drake, that can check. Tempest Gen, but Essence Capture gonna take out that Crackling Drake and put a counter on that Tempest Gen. Job is so far away from being able to trade with it, and it's threatening so much damage. And with dive down in hand from Robert Wagner, I don't know if there's any real answer for John Job here.
I would get in here with the Merfolk Trickster too.
Absolutely.
I mean, the attack is just lethal, right? If you were to block the Trickster.
Yeah, if you block Merfolk Trickster, that's not going to get the job done. You're going to take lethal damage from the other two. But Robert Wagner, perhaps understanding he is in a very comfortable position here and playing perhaps a little too quickly, not really mapping out this combat step. But so far ahead, it's not really an issue. John Job going to need Star of Extinction here. Does he have it in his deck?
Not great against Spell Pierce. I don't know.
It's not. It's not. It's not good against Spell Pierce.
It's not good against Spell Pierce. And that missed attack there from the Trickster here might amount to Job getting a full extra turn.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The Crackling Drake here is very likely to trade with the Tempest Gen, or jumping the Tempest Gen. Not quite enough instant sorceries in the graveyard. It's going to put Jonathan Job down to 1. Does he have the Star of Extinction? That's going to be the only thing that gets him out of this spot. Not even Hydroid Krasis does it. Not even Niv Mizzet does it. He's short on the red mana. What's he going to do?
And he's got his sideboarded Cannonade here, but Battlefield just a little bit too big for that.
Yeah, it's way past that point. Jonathan Job here staring at a couple of red cards and a Niv Mizzet against this 2 big Tempest Gen, as well as 2 other lethal threats staring him down. Go Lava Coil and then Tempest Gen. Oh no, it's not enough. Jonathan Job extends the hand, and we're going to have Robert